If there was ever a time when we needed to hold hands and light torches of strength and courage and mindfulness and thoughtfulness and to be warriors for the human spirit, well, for us, for our children, to say, that's not how we do it. This is how we do it. I wrote to you in my last newsletter column about how the country is in the midst of a really dramatic struggle about the nature of democracy. And I said that this ought to interest us as a congregation because Unitarian Universalist congregations are all run and governed by the democratic process. We have a special opportunity right now, all of us, to connect the dots between our religious beliefs and practices and our world citizenship, to remember and to affirm again that for us, the notion that all people within any community have a voice and a vote is actually a sacred concept. That's the bottom line. It's what God desires. Or if you're a non-theist, you could say it is the highest expression of human moral good, based on not only constitutional law in this country, but on natural law, on moral law. This is one of our most profound faith claims, and one of the ones that is easiest to take for granted. Society obviously struggles with this notion, and for all our high aspirations, well, so does every institution and even our Unitarian Universalist congregations. I used to like to remind my congregation in Norwell that for all of our proud history, we had slave pews up in the choir loft at one time. And they were kept there by the congregation over the years and the decades as a reminder to stay humble and keep learning and growing spiritually and ethically. But we are standing or sitting in a long line of people who have upheld the right of each individual within a community to take part in the process by which important decisions are made. This is not the time or the place to hash out with you the myriad problems and crises within our national democracy, although for any of us who are paying attention, there is reason for grave concern. A presidential candidate said yesterday that he would have protesters arrested at his rallies. Peaceful protesters. This is America. We have freedom of assembly. Many Americans in different regions face obstructions to their ability to cast a vote. Violence is becoming more and more commonplace in public scenes of political disagreement. But you know, that word gospel, what it means is good news. And we have a Unitarian Universalist gospel, we do. And we should take a measure of comfort in our good news, which is that we actually are in a position to model how to do this better. I'm so cautious of what I call our terminal uniqueness as Unitarian Universalists, and I never want to suggest that we're superior to any other group of people. We are just one community, one small denomination, trying to figure out how to dwell together in peace, seek knowledge in freedom, serve humankind so that all souls have the opportunity to flourish, to pursue the fullness of a meaningful life, and to receive spiritual support at the end of life and unto death. But right now, in these very days, I dare say that I have a sense of our extraordinary wealth. Not of finances or numbers necessarily, and I'm talking denominationally, but of reverence. We have a wealth of reverence for an inclusive democratic process. And we have reverence and faith in the ability that we can be together as a diverse and complicated group of people who nevertheless understand how important it is to put love, compassion, deep listening, forbearance, and decency at the center of our work and our lives together. We practice it here, and we take it into all our relationships and to all the places that our lives touch. I think this is something that Unitarian Universalists are going to have to teach and demonstrate even more intentionally as part of our religious identity in the immediate coming time. It is going to have to be more a central part of our central message and part of our invitation to anxious, frightened, and upset people that I meet all the time who may need us and want to join with us. So I feel that we are very rich in this way. And I confess to you that I had an arrogant thought yesterday while walking my dog on the beach. I thought, Unitarian Universalists could be spiritual one-percenters. Not because we're so perfect, but because we're so committed. We're so committed to process. There have been many failures along the way, but we have an incredible inheritance. We have received an incredible trust fund in terms of evolving our positions on important matters through civil discourse, discernment, prayer, and major, deep commitment to personal and societal transformation. And you thought I was going to talk about money. I am. Of course I am. We're springing forward together this morning into our Canvas season. So of course we have to talk about money, about how we fund our congregational life and programs. And how that happens largely is based on the pledges that you all make today and in the next week or so. And please make that by the deadline, because this is how we actually set our fiscal year budget, by looking at our pledges and plugging that in, and that's a significant number. But it's important. Oh, and just to pick up on something Mike said about making contributions in the plate are wonderful, but it's not something that we can budget for. We can't count on that. That's largesse and it's wonderful, but it's through the pledges that we understand how many people we have who are really committed to that fiscal support, and also it's really a sign of our spiritual strength too. How many people are making that promise? That pledge is a promise. But we think about money and pledging always within the context of this larger issue of the democratic process of sharing leadership, responsibility, and commitment within our church. Of course, the board and I talk a lot about, and the finance committee, we talk a lot about pledging, and we hope every member and friend of this church makes a pledge in 2016-2017 for the 2016-17 budget. I have said before that a congregation that is entirely funded by the dead is a dead institution that is operating not as a church so much as a public utility for the benefit of consumers. And we have to be honest about that. There are spiritual and practical consequences in relying completely or too completely on an inheritance from the cemetery. The living congregation must support the living church. But I'm asking you not just for a financial promise. I'm asking you on behalf of myself and the staff and our leaders that you make it your business this season, if you do not already know it well, to understand how this church works. As Mike said, the nuts and bolts, and not to be embarrassed in any way to ask how, because this is your inheritance. We are a small congregation, but a big institution. Every one of us is a steward of that institution known as the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greater Lynn, while also being part of the mystical fellowship of souls that we call the church. This church voted to change its governance structure about 8 years ago, I think. And we now practice what's called policy governance, which gives the minister much more executive authority to mobilize staff to fulfill the vision of ministry as set by the board. Well, how do they develop that vision of ministry? They talk to all of you and the ministry teams and the committee members. The board's work is to set policy, and that policy is drafted by the governance committee, which is a very exciting name for a very tiny group of us, Lissa, our vice president, Claire, our president, and Debbie Boggs as an at-large member, and me. We meet monthly in a kind of mini board meeting to set the board's agenda and to work out a huge amount of administrative detail, sometimes over Chinese food or spaghetti. There are board committees. We tend to refer to every group in the church as a committee, but that's actually not accurate. There are board committees of elected members of the church, and they serve 3-year terms. Most of those committees of the board deal with stewardship and finances. There's a lot to deal with, a lot. It's wicked complicated because of our endowment and restricted endowments within the endowment, okay? And then we have ministry teams, which anyone can pop in and out of at any time, although they work better and more effectively when folks make a commitment to join a ministry team and focus on that specific work for a time. Okay, who's going to get a gold star? Can anyone name all our current ministry teams? Preferably not a president or vice president, but let's hear. Throw out one. What's one of them?
Global Congregation.
Global Congregation Ministry Team. Mm-hmm. Social Justice Ministry Team. Properties Team.
Green Sanctuary.
Green Sanctuary Ministry Team. Faith Development Ministry Team. Sorry? The ushers are not a ministry team officially. I know, right? And that's true. They're an important team, but they kind of live in their own. What we should have is a worship arts ministry team, and we started one, and it needs more members for Sunday morning, and the ushers would be joining with that, but that would be part of a team that does more for setting up and beautification and helping with worship. And Trudy's looking at me and saying, I'm part of that team. And we lost 2 members, so that's what happened last year. We're a small church, and that happens. There's one ministry team that hasn't been mentioned.
Church history.
2 of them. Church history ministry team, new, working with archives, and hospitality and membership ministry team, Linda. Exactly. And these are fluid. We can dissolve one if we need to. We can start a new one if there's great interest. We need a pastoral caregivers ministry team. Okay, so we really do. And although there's great pastoral care happening here, it needs to be formalized with a team under ministerial support and guidance. This is a volunteer organization. It changes all the time. Things are always in flux. We respond to our times. We have 1 full-time minister, 2 other full-time staff members, and 3 part-time staff that are very busy interfacing with all of those teams and committees and each other and all the functions of the church, the pastoral, the worship, programmatic, learning, financial, building management, which is huge. Our job, my job and those who work here, is to make operational your vision, your plan, that you define and decide and say you want to be. My job as your minister is to help you define that vision, to articulate it in theological terms, to hold it before you, because you need someone to do that, to live it with you in community, in this community and beyond, and to help equip you as individuals to become a people. As we say in traditional terms, a people of God, a people of justice, a people of love. There's so much more to say, but we know that this is an ongoing conversation and we can only do so much in one service. So I want to say this in closing. In this time of civic tension and chaos, I am proud to be one of you. In this challenged nation, I am grateful to be among you, nestled in the bosom of this great tradition. In this particular spring morning of 2016, when I woke early to birdsong and a pink sunrise, I knew that Claire Campbell and those helping her were up early, making a beautiful breakfast for me and for all of us who would come hungry. Thank you, Claire. Thanks to everyone who fed us as a community that is springing forward together. I hope we will continue to more deeply feed each other and belong to each other and to this faith. Amen.